So now we come on to our first session, which is business school roles in educating and supporting startups and SMEs, which of course accounts for over 99% of the businesses in Latin America. And I'm delighted to welcome up and chair this, the Dean of one of the world's most respected schools, but particularly respected for its entrepreneurial teaching. So I think it's very, very appropriate. Josep Frank is the Dean of ESADE Business School in Barcelona, Spain. And Josep is also, we're very proud to have him, a board member of the International Management Board of AMBA and BGA. So Josep, welcome.
Several other speakers in this session, so I'm pleased to welcome on board Francisco Gómez, Carlos Mario Betancur Hurtado, Ignacio Osuna, and María Clemencia Sierra. Probably if we can sit in the same order of the pictures, that would be easier. So Francisco, if you can sit here.
Thank you.
Carlos, you go next. Ignacio, and last but not least, María Clemencia. Well, as Andrew was saying before, you know, SMEs represent more than 99% of the companies in Latin America, and 9 out of 10 are what we can consider micro enterprises, micro companies, microempresas, as we would say in Spanish. Of course, when it's talking about the employment that SMEs generate, it accounts for 60% of the employment of the region. And when talking about the revenues, the value creation, it's only a quarter of the revenues of the region that are generated by these companies. There are many challenges for SMEs, and that a few of them can be the lack of access to financing, the informality, and the high failure rate. So there is the percentage of mortality amongst SMEs sometimes is really high. Of course, at a time where business schools are looking forward to see what is the impact that we have in society, probably one dimension, a clear dimension of the impact that business schools can have in society is how we can train and educate entrepreneurs and future entrepreneurs. So is in our role as business school trying to generate and be efficient and contribute. So this is what we are going to discuss about, as business schools, what can we do in order to foster the entrepreneurship spirit in our students? What are the activities that we can do in the school and with other partners as well? And for this discussion, we have speakers. I will ask them to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their background, but just allow me to briefly say who they are and where they come from. María Clemencia Sierra, of course, you know her because she was in the last session. She's the Dean of Universidad del Norte, Uninorte, in Barranquilla, very close to here. Then next we have Ignacio Osuna, who's the MBA director at INALDE Business School, Universidad de la Sabana, located in Chía, right?
Yes,
that's
right.
the correct location. Then we have Francisco Gómez, who's the program director of Santo Domingo Foundation. So it's a different profile, if you want, compared to the other who are deans or associate deans. And last but not least, we have Carlos Mario Betancur, who's the associate dean of Universidad EAFIT, located in Medellín. So let's just start with our panel speakers, ladies first. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself, about your career?
Background. Well, I've been a year the dean of the business school. This is the first experience that I have had in the education sector. I started at the Ministry of Finance here in Colombia, and my experience has been mainly in the finance sector. So from the Ministry of Finance, I went to New York and worked in investment bank, focused in Latin America. And then my career continued in more of a development angle when I moved to Washington and worked at the Treasury at IFC and the Treasury at the World Bank. And the government of Colombia knocked on my door again in 2013 and asked me to come to Colombia to lead to be the vice president or CFO of Financiera de Desarrollo Nacional. It's the infrastructure bank here in Colombia. And we did a lot of things, and I was there for almost 7 years. And my family decided to stay in Colombia, not go back to Washington, D.C., and I decided to come and live in the coast again after 32 years. So I come back to Barranquilla, and I work in a private equity fund that had investments in the palm oil industry. And then I receive a call from the president of our school, and he invites me to join the team. And I was really excited about joining the team because my return to Barranquilla made more sense now. I was going to be able to contribute my knowledge to all the students, both in undergraduate school and in the graduate school as well. So I'm happy to be here. And yes, it's my first AMBA conference, and excited that I was here in Cartagena. So.
Thank you very much. Ignacio, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I've been working at INALDE for the last 20 years, basically. I'm professor of marketing there, and I've been as a director of the executive MBA for 4 years now. So that's basically my background in terms of INALDE. I had a PhD from ESE Business School, and I've been involved in a couple of companies. I'm co-founder of 2 companies, one in agribusiness, another in technology. And I'm also a partner in other 2 companies. So this is a topic that I really like, the SMEs and startups.
Good. Thank you very much. Carlos.
Okay, thank you. Short. I've been working for 27 years in La Universidad de AFIT, 16 years as a chief of benefits and payroll, and 11 years as a professor. I'm a PhD in administration. I have a PhD in administration, and I am a master in organizational human development. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Last but not least, Francisco.
Thank you, Joseph. I'm the weird one here. So I'm a mechanical engineer. I started working in large-scale engineering projects, designing mechanical equipment for hydroelectric power plants. And I decided that I wanted to focus on renewable energies. So I did a master's degree at the University of Edinburgh. And after that, I returned to Colombia. Nothing was really happening in Colombia regarding renewable energies because our energy matrix is actually very clean. We have a lot of hydro. So I turned to the Ministry of Environment, and I wanted to do policy making, just to incentivize other renewables. So I was there for a couple of years. After that, I worked at the Humboldt Institute doing research on biodiversity. I was there for 5 years. I built the consultancy unit for the institute. The institute is a public entity, but has the ability to sell this sort of services. Right now I'm at the Fundación Santo Domingo. I'm the programmatic director in charge of environment, health, and education. I've been for 5 months now, so.
Good, thank you very much. Well, as you can see, we have a diversity of backgrounds, people who have a much more, let's say, academic background, people who have combined an academic background with creating their own companies, people who has been in administration, public administration, and then in investment, and also now people who are in the foundation and has been even doing a researcher before. All of them from Colombia. How would you describe the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Colombia? Are there some traits? Are there any traits which are different from other countries in Latin America? What would you say? Would you like to start?
Sure. I think Colombia has a lot of peculiarities. No, we have this issue around security, around drugs, which basically is embedded in our history. Nevertheless, we have a very stable democratic government, have had for many years, much more stable than most of our neighbors. We're not exactly the wealthiest country, but we have been growing steadily, and I think that's important. And because of that context, including the security context, I would say Colombia is a very resilient place in terms of its talent, its people. We understand threats very differently than other peoples do. Apart from that, I would say that geographically we're very well located. You could even say strategically. Have access to the Caribbean, to the Atlantic, to the Pacific. We're very rich in terms of natural resources, forests and mining and oil and what have you not. So yes, I would say that Colombia is very, very particular in how it is. I don't know if any of you would like to add something.
I think that our ecosystem it's complex because on the one hand you have a lot of people with good ideas, with good intentions, and also actions in order to come up with startups and companies. But at the same time, you find a lot of people that tend to be more prudent or conservative, that are not willing to make the bet that entrepreneurs have to do. So it's very contrasting in this sense our country. Also, it's not easy to have a company, a formal company in Colombia. There's a lot of steps. There's a lot of complexity, legal complexity around that. So it makes a little bit difficult to have a company and grow a company in this context. However, you see a lot of startups and entrepreneurships going up and growing and in a very healthy way. So it's a paradigmatic country, I think, in this sense.
Anything else that you would like to add?
Well, one of the things that I, just like Francisco was pointing out to the challenges, I think one of the biggest challenges here in Colombia, I don't know if in other countries it's as big, but it's the informality and the flow that we got from the migration of Venezuelans to here to Colombia. So the ecosystem of entrepreneurship in Colombia is slightly different because you have many people that are creative, but that have developed their entrepreneurial spirit, but in a context of informality. So it becomes harder, like Ignacio was talking about, for them to move to formality, and it becomes even harder because of all the steps they need to take to become formal. So I think that the ecosystem in Colombia has its particularities, but at the same time, it has brought many different players and stakeholders together to be able to educate the entrepreneurs, to be able to bring the best of those ideas. And the public sector has put in a lot of money into entrepreneurship programs. Fundaciones like Fundación Santo Domingo are also very, very active. And the schools, not only the schools that are here and that are part of AMBA, but also different schools throughout Colombia are also trying to help that ecosystem function.
Yeah, I think the same. I believe the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Colombia is made by a network between private, public, and educational institutions, and they intend to work to sensibilize young people to try to make an entrepreneurial culture. So also, I believe we can find a pre-incubation, incubation, acceleration, and strengthening companies. Well, and maybe that network try to consolidate good projects, and maybe to and the internationalization of that company. So.
Okay, thank you. Well, we see that there are different issues here. We've heard about the stability, that of course, if you are in a stable country, that's an incentive for people to invest. We've heard about the issues of safety or uncertainty that probably are preventing from investment. We've heard about the need to have public and private ecosystem stakeholders working together in order to help companies to be created and to be developed. But one of the things that you mentioned was about, and I think it was Ignacio who said that people with ideas but who are prudent or who probably risk averse, right? And here probably we have one of the roles in order how to educate these people. So it's probably good to see what are you doing in your business schools in order to foster the entrepreneurship. Which kind of activities you do, how are you supporting these young talented people who maybe are very creative, as you said, but at the same time they are resistant or afraid of launching or making an investment and of course taking a commitment, right? So Maria, would you like to start?
Well, I think that one of the things that the business schools in general have is a responsibility of educating not only the students and the undergraduate and the graduates, but also the community in general, because we play a very important role. So at Universidad del Norte, and we actually work with the whole ecosystem, and we reach out to vulnerable communities, we reach out to small, medium enterprises, family-owned businesses, because this risk-taking is not only the young people that want to set up a business or a startup, but it's also a company, you see it in companies that have been family-owned, and they are afraid of taking those risks. So we educate them. An example, I'll give you an example. Some people think that if they grow, that with taxation and with the changes in all of the taxation laws, oh, I won't grow because I will lose money, or I have to share my company with the government. And you need to work with them and have them understand that growth is not tied to, that their success is not tied to paying taxes or not paying taxes. So it's those small things that actually make people scared of actually taking risks. And then there's also the finance sector, but I can talk on for the finance sector forever, because most of them don't want to get loans because they don't understand how it works. So we have entrepreneurs that are looking at the Rappis and the Quipus, and they think that they'll be able to get equity when most of our companies will need to go and knock the doors of banks and get debt. So they're also scared of, that's another risk that they don't want to take, and we're working with. I think the schools have a responsibility in that sense. Thank you.
Well, in the context of INADE, that we are a graduate business school, we focus basically on executive education, top managers of large companies, but also in our executive MBA, we force students to come up with a business plan and a business idea, a new business idea, as their project for at the end of the executive MBA. And we try to sell them the idea that this is an opportunity, a unique opportunity in your lives to think about entrepreneurship and an entrepreneurial project in a comprehensive way that maybe you don't have the time, you don't have to put the effort in other times. So this is a unique opportunity for you to take advantage on this moment in the program, in your life, to do it. So at the end, most of our students take this path of the project of graduation. So we think that it's a good way to force these people to at least think about how to become an entrepreneur.
Do many of these projects fly?
Yes.
Or are they purely academic exercises?
No. That's the beautiful thing of it, because at the end, between 15 to 20% of the projects fly.
Okay.
So people realize that it's difficult, but they have the capabilities, they have the knowledge, and of course, the business school needs to be a node in a network, as Carlos was saying, that provides or at least help to get access to capital funds, to banks or other stakeholders that they need in this project. So I think we are quite successful in this, forcing them in a good way. Yeah.
Good. Carlos, you come from a university that has a strong tradition of technical and engineering university, and very often we see synergies between business schools and engineering schools. Are you taking advantage of these synergies at the FIT? I mean, how can you promote this multidisciplinarity in order to launch projects, student projects?
Well, I believe it's different because Universidad FIT start since our School of Management. After many years, include the engineers programs, but it's real. We have a connection between both schools, and we make a lot of projects both. For example, we have programs as a master in project management, and they include a lot of people from engineer, but we call that we have a hidden curriculum. Is because we try to sensibilize all our students to try to become their ideas in entrepreneurship. So I believe yes, and we work with 2 or 4 in that.
Good. Francisco, you have a different perspective. You don't come from a business school. Yes. Your role is in a foundation. How are you fostering entrepreneurship? How are you making that happen?
Hopefully this is what will give you food for thought, and diversity of thinking. At Fundación Santo Domingo, we have these housing projects here in Barranquilla and in Cartagena. The one in Cartagena is probably the biggest one in the country. It has the potential to house 200,000 people. Right now, there are about 17,000 people, so we're building it. And Fundación Santo Domingo is in charge of what we call the social equipment, so schools, kindergartens, hospital, clinics, parks, etc. The idea for us is that because we're a foundation, we don't really need to have every inch of the terrain sold in housing. We want to build quality of life. And that means that, of course, we're giving housing, of course, we're giving equipment, now social equipment for young generations to study and to create well-being, but we also need to foster economic development. And in fostering economic development, we work on education, but we need to also bring development to those communities. So we have very different programs, for example, supporting startups for the community that are built by the community, creating solutions for their needs. We also have a program of employment where we actually teach the community. This is the most vulnerable communities in the country. So context it's very important. At some point we have to teach them, for example, that for a job interview you need to wear your long trousers. You need to have shoes and not sandals. Apart from also working on your CV and whatnot. But it is very important to understand those contexts and to understand that business can be created in a micro scale, in those communities as well. And the creation of those businesses also creates development in the long run. This can go as far as you want. We also have English as a second language in a tourist city as Cartagena. That's a very useful skill. But one other thing that I would like to mention, because that's like the whole holistic approach to the housing projects we have here in Barranquilla and Cartagena. But we also have one entity that's called the Santo Domingo Arts and Crafts School in Bogotá. This is a very interesting project because what we teach there, it's basically 5 arts and crafts. It's leatherworking, it's carpentry, it's goldsmith or any work with metals, silver, bronze, and embroidery, knitting, loom weaving. These are all artisan crafts that we propose not just to salvage our cultural heritage, but also to create opportunities in entrepreneurship with these crafts that are actually very valuable these days now with modernity. The school focuses on excellence. It's about hand creating excellent stuff. And of course there's not much employment for those crafts, but there is a lot of opportunity for creating a new business for entrepreneurship. So those are different approaches that we use that are not exactly the same as business schools, but I think actually work.
Do you have the feeling that entrepreneurs are born or we can train them? What do you think?
I'm first.
Yeah. Ladies first.
I was in the corporate world, and then I moved to the private equity fund, and there the 3 companies that were managed were family owned. And to be sincere, the spirit of a person that owns a company, I think they're born with that. Simply because you go way beyond of the dollar sign. You go also into the social impact that I have. How many employments am I creating? When the pandemic came, you start thinking, well, I promised this person that I was going to take this product, and now the government closed down everything, but I know that this person will sell the product to someone else, so he's not going to receive the money to be able to eat. So in order to take all that pressure, I do think that you have to have something in you that allows you to, even though we were talking about they're not risk takers, at the end you're born like that. You're born taking risks. But there's also the entrepreneur that is becoming an entrepreneur because it's setting up a business just to survive. So you also have they were born and they need to survive. And they start by selling probably your arts and crafts in the street. You probably were in Cartagena, in the old city. You'll see all of the arts that are really, really special and great. So they do it as they have their survival instinct, not their entrepreneur instinct. So as a school, we need to deal with all of that, at least in Uninorte and in the region where we're located. The Caribbean region is one of the poorest in Colombia. So we see that even in our undergraduate students because they come from low-income families. So we go through the whole process of teaching them what you need to do. We have courses in the undergraduate degree, and in the master's degree we have a program similar to Ignacio's. But yes, I think you are born, and we have a research where we did some studies of the families that where entrepreneurs are born from, and there is a certain something special about those families as well. So.
Do you agree, gentlemen?
Not at all.
I think that's good.
But I want to take the last sentence that you said, because when you realize some families are very entrepreneurial, but I think that they're not a genetic aspect, but they are involved in a mindset, in a cultural context. So I think that we are dealing with a cultural and a mindset perspective for the entrepreneurial. So you can train them, but of course, if you are very far from that mindset, well, that person in particular maybe never is going to be an entrepreneur. So you can say, well, you didn't born, but even if you don't born as an entrepreneur, you can have some touch with a cultural entrepreneur context or with a mindset of entrepreneurship, and then you become, or at least you are close to, because when you see a lot of people from corporations have entrepreneurial mindset, even though they move all their professional life in corporations, but they have several opportunities to become with creativity ideas and projects and so on. So I think it's not a matter of being or not being an entrepreneur. It's a matter of mindset and cultural context make a lot of in this regard.
I believe most of the company in Colombia start as a family company, and most of our young people or students grow in this kind of environment, entrepreneurial environment. So I believe when you have a leader, normally they follow the leader. So for me, people born bad, they have to be closer to the university to try to train and to know the academic line to be entrepreneur.
Yeah, I don't think it's black and white. You have a spectrum, like everything. No, so you might have people with a lot of talent for it, but if they're not trained, eventually the trained people will outdo them and will become better. And I think you can train people that maybe don't have the talent and become great entrepreneurs, as well as people that might be very bad at it. No, but it's not. Yeah, I don't think it's black and white. I think you work the spectrum.
Good. Before we open the floor to the audience for asking questions or making comments, let me make a last short round. And if you can share with us what are some examples from your universities of startups that you are proud of, or that you think it can be iconic or showcasing what could be.
I'll share one of a startup and one of an SME. Is that okay? The startup was from an undergraduate student that kept asking himself, what do people do with the cooking oil? What happens to the cooking oil that you throw away? And he was a person that was very concerned about the environment. And he went through our center, and we worked with him on this idea of that he wanted to recycle the cooking oil. And we worked on all the logistics of picking up the cooking oil. And then afterwards, he was left with the cooking oil, and he needed to do something with it. And instead of throwing it out himself, he processed it, and now he's selling this to the biodiesel industry. And he also there was a question that we had about whether they go national and then international. He went international, and he's now selling to a company in Finland. So that's one that actually shows like the creativity, sustainability, and his family. His father is a doctor, so then the family issue wasn't there. And then we have an MBA graduate that went through our program. And like you mentioned, we have two graduation projects. One is a research project, and the other one can be an entrepreneurship project. And he's a dentist, and he went through our MBA program. He was looking for a possibility of seeing how he could increase the margins in his business, and he ended up going through 2 years of the MBA program and set up his own practice. So he not only grew the business, but he went from being just a dentist to being the owner of the practice. So those are like the two examples.
One of our recent last 5, 6, 8 years graduates from the MBA is the founder of Grupo Meiko. Grupo Meiko is a business focused on information on the traditional channel. In Colombia, the traditional channel, it's very strong to commercialize, to market most of the brands of consumer goods. So there's no information about this channel. So brands don't know how much they sell, where they sell, and so on in that channel. They only have the information that Nielsen or Kantar or these very large multinational companies of market information provides from the modern channel like supermarkets and so on. So this person comes up with this idea, and now he just sell it to a company in San Francisco to before this selling, they have a very large operation in most of Latin American countries, and that's the result of, as he said, of being part of the program, because he just I have to think internationally. I have to use these connections to do it, and well, they have grown spectacular in the last years. I think this is one of the most important entrepreneurs from recent years. Of course, there are also other people, but I want to highlight this entrepreneur because even if he had a very passionate spirit, it was difficult for him to channelize in just one project, just one goal, and he did it after the program. So that's one example.
Well, a lot of app. The last one was La House, H-A-U-S, La House, and it's a platform to buying and selling housing. That is so beautiful. Maybe another one between the School of Management and the School of Engineer, it was ERCO. ERCO is a good company to work with energy. So it's one of the startups, and that's it.
I'm not really sure if Maria Clemencia, are you talking about Muta? Yes. Yeah, then we have the same one. So, yeah, it's really.
The name of my
Yeah.
my company.
The thing is that Fundación Santo Domingo has a project. It's a program called Caribe Exponencial, Exponential Caribbean. We thought of the program during pandemic to help small and medium businesses through hard times, basically. And the idea was to support them strategically, financially, in terms of planning, no? Organizationally, and also to give them some resources. And we found Muta. Muta is incredible because right now they don't only sell or buy actually used oil, but all sorts of waste. And with them, through our program, we figured out a way to help them, and that was by we have this like the small bank, with soft loans, and we created a loan that's based on that you can pay through waste. So basically, universities, for example, that have a lot of oil waste, they can receive, let's say, around $60,000, in a loan that they can use for whatever they want, and they pay it to Muta with their used oil. And Muta then works on the used oil and refines it through diesel, and it's a very nice project that we built, and they're great. So yeah, that was my startup as well.
Very good. Let me open the floor to our audience for questions or for comments or for ideas. So please, if you can say your name when you ask the question and where you come from.
To be bad partners for startups. We're too slow, and startups, especially high impact startups, tend to be quick, and they need quick solutions, and they're thinking about the economy of the future, and universities tend to be a little slower than that, or a lot slower than that. But then I'm really worried about, and as a mother, I always think, who's serving the broccoli on the table? Who's talking about the difficult conversations? And then I'm worried about a possible bubble in the high impact startup world. And then I think our responsibility as universities to bring the broccoli on the table and sort of have discussions about good corporate practices in the startup world, or how about sustainability in the startup world. And I don't think we've quite solved it yet. Where should we stand as business schools? We have a new experiment at EAFIT University, and Carlos Mario could tell you a little bit more about it. It's called Ongoing, and we decided to become a landing for startups at the university, and the strategic decision was to sort of let them be. So they're in this building a little further, like in the outskirts of the university, and we sort of watch them and let them be and see what's going on. And these really young entrepreneurs are talking about things that we don't necessarily understand. But I don't know where to stand, from like, we're too slow, but then somebody has to have the tough conversations, and what's the role we should have in this, like, sort of, specifically high impact startup world?
Yeah.
Let's say at Uninorte, we've been having that debate as well. And coming from the private sector and companies, entrepreneurship is sometimes a sexy word. Everything can be called an entrepreneur project. And really what we're seeing is that it's more SMEs. And if you can call them entrepreneurs, but also work with them for them to understand that they're an SME or that they're a micro enterprise, and that they're not going to be a high impact. And don't compare yourself to a high impact. You should be working on your margin and teach them how to manage that. So we're with Fundación working on how to be able to bring down to earth all of those entrepreneurs that feel that they're high impact. So in Barranquilla, there's only like 350 companies that are high impact. And you actually will from those to go to Endeavor International, no company from Barranquilla has gone to Endeavor International, only to Endeavor Bogota, so from the Caribbean. So it's a challenge because everybody dreams of that, but you need to, like you're saying, you need to bring them down to earth and tell them you're the motor of development in Colombia, and not necessarily as a unicorn, but as a company that needs to be managed and work with margins. So it's...
Sometimes it's not just... Sometimes it's not just what you teach, but also to provide spaces for these things to happen and to flourish, right? To provide the spaces for the young entrepreneurs or the talented people so they can interact together and probably provide some kind of mentorship or put them in contact with investors. I mean, certainly we can teach and we can, and that's something that we do in the program, so they can have all the, let's say, tools to make sure that their new companies are working well, but it's also creating this ecosystem that helps this flourish. Okay, any other comment? We have here Jorge Talavera from ESAN.
Well, my name is Jorge Talavera. I'm working for a long time in business schools. If we see the title of the session is the role in education and supporting startups. We are on the sides of the supply. We offer services. What do we offer to the sector of small businesses and medium business and startups in terms of programs to train these people or to train enterprises to be successful, because that's the sector of education. What else when you say supporting startups and small business? What support they need? They need support in the financial aspect. They need the support in the supply sector or whatever. How we collaborate with different institutions to offer them solutions. Let's say to go to work with the government to make, let's say, not informal, as they are most of the startups and the small business. They are quite informal, they don't pay taxes or whatever. How we collaborate with the government to offer this opportunity that will contribute to the development of society. How we work with the corporate world to train these people. Even, and I can mention several aspects there, how we learn from each other. We have the opportunity to collaborate. How we share these experiences with other institutions. We don't do that. See, that's one point that we should concentrate in the future. How we share this knowledge or good experiences to be successful.
Some of our panelists mentioned the word that we are a node. Huh? Yeah. It was you, Ignacio. So we are a node. We are part of a system. And of course, how can we promote entrepreneurship? As I was saying before, it's not just what we teach. It's also what we facilitate. And in this facilitation, we have also to be part of an ecosystem with government, with public funds, with investment companies, with other entrepreneurs that can nurture this aspect. And let me just wrap up because we are running out of time. And beyond that, another word that to me comes to the mind after the discussion is the issue of culture. How can we create an entrepreneurial culture? Because I don't know if entrepreneurs are born or not, or it's part. I don't think there is a DNA trait that someone comes. But sometimes is finding that project that really you fall in love with, and then you create your own thing. You know. There are many things that we cannot control. I mean, we cannot control if the administration puts more or less paperwork, as you were mentioning before, in creating a company. Of course, we cannot control the economic situation and the uncertainty that it's generated. But, I mean, we have a role also, I believe, to make this culture of entrepreneurship you know, flourish in our schools. So beyond what we teach and what we can facilitate and all the networks that we can do, we have to consider from our perspective as business schools, how can we create this culture and how we can transform this culture? Because at the end of the day, you know, it's, as I was saying in the beginning, one of the main impacts that as business schools we can have in society. So thank you very much for the panelists. A big clap to the